It's becoming an annual tradition for my buddy Chris and I to go on an early season backpacking trip, and that means finding some desert or river canyon microclimate to explore, the challenge being to find some place that is likely to be snow-free in April. This time, I talked Chris into trying a place I had wanted to hike for years, the Snake River Trail in Idaho. Since it follows a river, though, I wondered whether it might be closed in and without views. Well, not to worry, the views were jaw-dropping. I had read about this trip many times in my guidebook, but was always deterred by two main concerns. First was the access road. Hell's Canyon, as you might suspect by the name, is pretty much snow-free almost year-round. But the road to the trailhead at Pittsburgh Landing goes up over a high ridge, and in this open, Palouse country, any type of weather is possible, especially in the spring. During the 6-hour drive down, we encountered heavy rain and snow in several places, which had us debating if we should shift to a plan B and hike somewhere else. Thankfully, we kept going, and the road over Pittsburgh Saddle was not only clear, but in really good condition. The second concern about this trip was all the ominous warnings about rattlesnakes on every rock, poison ivy so thick it's unavoidable, and ticks, a multitude of ticks, especially in the spring. Hoping for the best and planning to keep our eyes open and scanning the ground constantly, we set off down the trail. Any thought of this being a casual stroll along the river was quickly dashed, as the trail began its roller coaster pattern of steep but thankfully short climbs across hills bordering the river. What's that?
It's like camping on a lawn.
Yeah, beautiful.
So how much is
Kirkwood Ranch is an open-air museum of homesteading days and well worth the rather strenuous day hike it would be to get there and experience this place. The well-preserved buildings and informative displays help to imagine what life might have been like for the early pioneers, as well as for the native tribes who made use of this rather uninviting terrain for thousands of years prior.
Arrow points, kinds of stuff back here is cool.
Yeah, apparently it's quite common to find arrow points around here. After setting up camp in the park-like setting next to the river, we checked out the museum and then hiked less than a mile upstream to visit the Fun Carter Mansion built by a bootlegger during Prohibition.
So you know you have to put these filters in the bag at night, right? If it's going to be below freezing.
Oh my God, this is going to take forever.
Are you serious? Yeah, you just have to adjust the pressure and so on. Pretty fast.
Pain in the ass. Okay, I'm just going to say Steri pen is a lot easier.
Oh, well, yeah.
Kirkwood is such an easy place to camp, there's even flush toilets available. Since it is such a nice place to be, you definitely want to do this hike either very early or very late in the season to avoid the crowds and the heat. Although it had been a warm day, the evening brought a chilly north wind while we sat and ate dinner. I kept it simple with cheese, crackers, and summer sausage, while Chris indulged in reheating a fried rice dish he had made at home the night before.
Sit yourself, I'm cool. I was willing to share, but I'm also willing to eat.
One concern I had had about this trip was whether the general lack of trees might mean trouble when it came to hanging food, but there was a line of tall pine trees along the edge of the river that made it relatively easy to accomplish a good bear hang. So we're doing really well. It's getting towards 8 o'clock at night, and boy, we really hauled ass coming in. It's 6 miles here to Kirkwood, and we did that in 2.25 hours. So feeling good to be out in the woods and just I think channeled that energy into hiking really fast. But all set up, and it's really chilly. There's a bit of a cold breeze, but not raining, so we're very happy with that. And there's not many people here, just a few. There's a huge area to camp at here at Kirkwood, so we're all spread out. I think there's about 8 tents on down in addition to R2, but don't even see them, they're so far away. So we're really looking forward to getting on down the river and seeing what we can see. So this is what it's like inside the one person. Just got the one pocket up top there. And pretty much up against the screen. I probably could scoot. No, that's pretty much it. Not much leeway side to side, but there is a lot of room in the vestibule. Got my shoes and socks and gaiters out there, and got the pack leaning there, a few other things. So there's pretty good room if you make good use of the vestibules, and don't mind being close to the sidewalls. Of course, if I was using just the tarp and not the mesh, there'd be plenty of room.
probably one of those like whatever you're used to things because you've been in such a bigger space. I will say that thing felt luxurious compared to the, because it just wasn't my face.
You're on the list.
I'm surprised.
Whatever list there is.
Well, good morning. Looks like a beautiful day. We had a nice little sleep in and slept like a rock last night. A little gentle rain off and on, which made for wonderful sleeping. And we had a good time checking out Kirkwood Ranch. Really awesome museum and outbuildings worth looking at. But now we get to head up to Suicide Point and see the view up there. Hopefully heading to the Sheep Creek Ranch, and maybe a little bit beyond that. We're going to play that by ear on whether we think we can get up into the hills or not. So let's go.
Yeah, it's definitely warm as soon as you get out here.
Yeah. too slow.
Yeah.
Did you see the stone hut?
No. Oh. Oh. That's cool.
So we're trying a new thing tonight. This is the broccoli beef stroganoff from Right on Trek. And talk about wanting to support local companies. They are actually headquartered right here in Kalispell. And I've been meaning to try this one for a while because I actually have had their food at a local get-together. And it was really good. But the one thing that has kept me from trying it is that the instructions call for it to be simmered for a while, and I'm just not really a simmering kind of guy. I'm more of a boil a cup of water and dump it in and do nothing for 10 minutes kind of guy. So I thought I would try it my way, which is the wrong way. So we got to keep that in mind while I'm testing this, that I didn't cook it the right way, and see if I can get away with the easy way. Smells good, and they're definitely real chunks of broccoli and maybe some mushroom, looks like. Hey, that's dandy. That works just fine. Don't tell the owner. It's probably much better if you cook it the right way. But yeah, seems to have reabsorbed well. I did give it 15 minutes instead of the usual 7 that it calls for, but pretty good. Give it a try. Sheep Creek Ranch is under new ownership that doesn't allow camping without a permit. So we hiked just about a half a mile up Sheep Creek and found this lovely meadow, which we shared with some bear hunters who were already set up and didn't return to camp until late. Next morning, while Chris slept in, I decided to climb a mountain.
Well, that's pretty cool. Glad I made it up here. Bit of a slog, and naturally more than I expected it to be. That always seems to be the case. Of course, the challenge now is getting back down, so hopefully that doesn't go too bad. I'll let you know. Well, I'm about halfway down, going down backwards on my hands and knees pretty much, which does kind of take a bit of effort. But I think I'm doing okay. I'm getting down there. A little ways to go. Well, I made it down. Not too bad. A couple of slips. I got a little boo-boo on my thumb that looks worse than it is. And some cactus thistles in that palm of the hand. But overall I survived. So, woohoo! That's a win. Yeah, would you? Sure.
I'll do it instead of yours.
Oh, okay.
Good morning. The weather's coming in. It's looking pretty scary. I don't know where Dan is. I've looked around for him. I just can't find him. So anyway, good morning. Good morning.
There you go. Well, good morning. With friends like that. sort of a second good morning after climbing the mountain, but we're all packed up and heading down the trail. Fairly leisurely, somewhat leisurely day. We're going to be heading to Kirkwood Ranch again, which should be about 10 miles. And it is 11:15. We're getting started.
And just so you know, that's named after Captain Kirk.
It's not really. Let's go. This is one of those places where you might really wonder where the heck the trail goes. You can just see it sloping up there, goes back in that canyon, then comes back out around those points and around to the edge there, which is the suicide point. Pretty impressive engineering. The weather was pretty bad the whole way back, too wet for hiking without a rain shell, but too warm to hike with one, until we got to the top of Suicide Point, when the skies stopped drizzling, the wind ceased, and suddenly it was extremely pleasant. We set up for a short break, but were so enjoying just hanging out in this marvelous place, we decided to eat an early dinner here, and ended up spending an hour and a half just soaking it in. During this whole time, not a single other person came by, so it felt kind of like being accidentally locked in the Louvre overnight and getting to stare at the Mona Lisa all by yourself. It was the high point of a great trip, both literally and figuratively. We finally, reluctantly, decided to push on and get back to set up camp, and by the time we made it back to Kirkwood, we were greeted by actual sunshine as the setting sun was angling under the cloud cover. Well, we made it back to Kirkwood Ranch at 6:30, which is pretty good time considering the goofing off we did up on Union Point, which was well worth the extra time. And that's a total of 10 miles because we were a little bit camped up Sheep Creek. In addition to that, I did the climbing the mountain or up that ridge first thing in the morning, so I'm pretty pooped. Think I'll sleep well tonight. Happy to be back to the Kirkwood. It's a really pleasant place to hang out here. Thought I'd show you some of the implements that they have on display here, and there's a pretty cool museum too. If you were to take a jet boat ride up to the Kirkwood Ranch, you would arrive right on the beach there at this stream, come up this path, and this is what you would see. Got some nice displays on all the old farm equipment sitting around. It's just fascinating to me to think about this being a working ranch and what life must have been like to live here. Looks like a phone in case you want to call for a pizza. Obviously, a very going concern for a long time to have so many implements. Although, I don't know, maybe they've gathered them here. So does the Pro setup exactly the same, other than tips down instead of tips up?
Yep.
Chris had generously agreed to swap tents with me on the third night so that I could experience life in the X-Mid Pro. The wind was kicking up just at the moment we were setting up, so it was interesting to compare the two versions of the X-Mid side by side, handling the gusts.
Well, good morning. It rained most of the night last night, pretty hard at times, and unfortunately it is still raining. We were sleeping in a little bit, hoping it will let up, but not sure it's going to do that, so I might have to face my least favorite thing about backpacking, and that is packing up in the rain. Always kind of a challenge to do that and not get stuff wet, but luckily we're just hiking out today, so not a matter of survival if things get wet that aren't supposed to. The One Pro is doing amazingly well for no condensation at all on the inside walls, which I would have expected in this kind of weather. So I'm pretty impressed with that. It's completely dry. So score one for the Pro. This is the space that's available in the Pro. Quite a bit top and bottom. Just gonna give it a few more minutes. Hope for the best.
We decided to pack up quickly and get moving waiting until both the weather and our bodies had warmed up a bit before eating breakfast about an hour and a half down the trail.
I'm trying to. Oh, sorry. Well, this big hill with a massively steep trail coming up right first thing out of Kirkwood. Great way to wake up your hip flexors in the morning and really piss them off. But we're almost there. Our very kindly hosts at the Kirkwood Ranch informed us that these are called hackberry trees that you see everywhere all along the trail. And they're kind of come here trees if you get close to them. They say come here to your technical gear. All done with breakfast in our little cozy cove.
Yes. Yes. I am all done with breakfast.
Smooth.
In the cozy cove.
Another successful shot.
Not successful.
Just testing out my new Sawyer squeeze. I definitely think that spring runoff is a good time to be using it. Just got water from this stream here. You can see how dirty it is. That's what it looks like before filtering, and this is what it looks like afterwards. Still a little color, but a lot better. So definitely a good time to choose the Sawyer over the Steripin. Just a mile in, there's this pretty good campsite right by the river, and there's a nice stream just a little over that slight rise. So not right here, but pretty close. That would be a good spot to check out if you were coming in late. Well, all in all, this has been a fantastic trip, even with the jet boats, of which there are a lot less on a Sunday and Monday than on Saturday. With all the dire warnings about poison ivy and rattlesnakes and whatnot, we didn't see any rattlesnakes, didn't encounter any poison ivy, no black widows, and not one single tick. So I feel pretty good about that. I think that means April is definitely the time to do this trip. Hiking out is pretty easy. Well, no. It's actually pretty strenuous with the ups and downs that are involved. I think the steepest parts of the trail are between Pittsburgh Landing and Kirkwood Ranch. But it has been blissfully cool and kind of misting without full-on raining the whole time. So that's been pretty cool. All right, I think that's it. Thanks for coming along. I'll see you next time. Take care.